Welcome back to the Daily Drum on WHUR and Sirius XM Channel 141. This is the Insight segment. I'm Harold Fisher. Are you hungry? Are you ready to eat? Well, right now is the time for you to treat your taste buds. Get ready for a mouth party. Black Restaurant Week is well underway, and you still have a chance to participate. We have so much to talk about tonight, and not just everything that is happening in the restaurants, but also some of the things affecting the economy of the business, as well as some of the politics that are circulating around DC. We'll get to that in just a bit. But my guests tonight are Fallon Farrell, managing partner for Black Restaurant Week, and Carly Hampton and Grant Mason, co-owners of Buddy's DC. That's right there in Northwest DC on 11th Street. We'll get to talk a little bit more about what they're doing. But I do want to start with, some of the serious news that has come out of the restaurant business right now. A quick statistic, the James Beard Foundation's 2023 industry report says 53% of culinary business owners are experiencing lower profits this year, and the challenges around labor costs, the rising cost of food. And as we know, in DC this year, some restaurants have not been able to survive, while so many others have learned to pivot and re-pivot post-pandemic. So let me start with the two of you, Carly and Grant. How's business?
It's not bad. In all honesty, our business right now is, for the last month or so, has been slower, but that's more weather related. We're predominantly a sports bar. We point ourselves more than a sports bar because we do different events and catering and birthday parties and things of that nature. But this time of the year is a little slower, but we're still in our growing phase, being that we're in our third year. And because of that, I feel like we started in this at a time when it was already really tough. And so we've slightly seen some gains where a lot of places have not, only because people are just not really finding out about it.
Yeah. I think if we had a different business model, then we'd be having a harder time.
Interesting. As I said, that's really kind of interesting. And I do want to talk a little bit more about the specifics of your business. But before we even get into that, Fallon, I want to ask you about the specifics of Black Restaurant Week. We are already in the midst of it. Talk to me about not only how this idea kind of came about, and we've spoken about this year after year, but there are some people who are unfamiliar, and what's being offered this week. And please turn your mic on.
Sure. So Black Restaurant Week is essentially an awareness platform. When you really look at a lot of culinary businesses, the cost of marketing is a lot for them to take on. When you talk about hiring a publicist, running ads, dealing with influencers, most culinary businesses in our network, that's kind of a burden on their bottom line. And so we really looked at this community initiative as a way to really platform the businesses in our community. We started in Houston in 2016. We're celebrating 10 years this year of doing this work. Really as an understanding of, we really didn't see a lot of businesses participating in major food festivals in Houston and restaurant weeks, not because they weren't qualified or things like that. They just didn't really have the awareness that the other businesses had. And so what can we create that was all inclusive for the barbecue restaurants, the cafeterias? Not everyone's going to be serving 2-course, 3-course fine dining menus, but they still deserve a right to shine. And so that was essentially why we created it. And we just expanded year over year. And it's really become a need year over year. Every year at the beginning of the year, we're like, do we still need Black Restaurant Week? And then something happens, right? You have inflation. Now we have immigration. Like, there's always a reason to shine a light on the local businesses in our community doing the work that really just need a voice.
That's interesting. So talk to me about the differences between the DC market and the Houston market. Are they the same, or how are they different?
I will say, in reality, Houston is better set up for small businesses. I would say it's just a lower cost entry. Or so when we really look at what's going on across the country, when we were doing COVID, we were entering into some markets and their small business community was just like destroyed, right? You look at California and the Bay Area, I mean, they just don't have a lot of restaurants there. And it really speaks to just the cost of commercial real estate and property taxes and all the things that go on with operating a restaurant. So I would say Houston has seen a boom in the restaurant space. You know, there are a lot of restaurants here. It's a growing culinary conversation nationally. It's kind of like this hidden secret of the South that now is starting to get recognition from James Beard and Michelin Guide. And the Black culinary scene kind of benefits from that. You know, West African is becoming really popular with those type of restaurants. We have really great chefs down here. So you get to see that aspect. I think the beauty of DC is you get to see the same. We see, you know, with Spice Kitchen out in Maryland, we get to see the same kind of West African. It's not just soul food is what we tell everyone, right? You have I think it's like Doros or something. He's doing like the Ethiopian fried chicken. Like, you get to see the diversity and the fusion that goes along in the Black community. It's not just mac and cheese. It's really this like fusion of flavors and backgrounds. And I just think that's kind of the beautiful thing we see amongst the DC market as well.
I did want to ask all of you, and I'll start with Carly and Grant. As you know, Initiative 82, the law that's on the books right now that DC Mayor Muriel Bowser once repealed in reference to paying tipped workers a wage. And there's been a lot of back and forth. It's on hold right now. Last week it passed, as you know, the first reading in the budget. What are your thoughts about that? Does that help your business? Does it hurt your business? What about your wait staff? What do they think about it?
I feel like the wait staff has felt like they would like to go back to how things were originally as far as the tip wage workers. Like, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, part of the issue with us, we opened right after Initiative 82 had passed. And so we took the approach of
that's right. Thank you. I think I said Initiative 83. It is Initiative 82. Thank you, but please continue.
We opened right after it passed. So instead of going with the incremental changes, we said, let's start a business based on where they're saying we have to go. So we started all our people at the baseline minimum hourly rate of where it's going to be, I think, in 2027, which was like $18. $17.50, $18. So we started all our people there and told them, hey, we'll start you here. We base the model. If it can work, then we have something that lasts. If it doesn't, we don't. Obviously, a lot of people who are used to the older system have some issue because what has happened is there's a service charge that's kind of been introduced into the realm, and consumers had some pushback from it, as well as the people that work in front of house, because they were used to that not being there and that being there, that money being coming straight to them. Whereas now it has to be spread because we're talking about higher wages. You're not making $5 an hour. Now you're making 18. So whether someone's in here or not, you're getting paid, right? So that money needs to be deciphered between you, front of house, back of house. That pool has to go into being able to support you guys and the business, right? Because there are other costs. So we've gone with that. Most of our front of house staff, we haven't had an issue because between that and them still having extra percentages of tips, most of our front of house staff make greater than $30 an hour when they're at work. And then there's sometimes they only make $23 because it's a slow day. But
Mhm.
the city has gotten used to it. I remember our first year, we were getting a lot of pushback, a lot of people claiming, but it's pretty standard in the industry now. And so I think that the people that have gotten used to it appreciate, especially when the economy has gotten slower, when we don't see as many bodies in the space. They like that they know they show up to work. Hey, if I come to work for 5 hours a day, I'm leaving with no less than, let's say, 100 something bucks. It may not be like the old days when a bartender could go to work and make 500 bucks in a shift because you're so busy and there is no, but at the same time, they're guaranteed. They're not coming in on a slow day and they're getting $5 an hour and they walk away with 25 bucks on a 5 hour shift. So there's some give and take. I've heard people on both sides. Like I said, we haven't had to deal with the backlash of it or the negative side of it because we started with that already in the forefront.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So you didn't necessarily have the history of the other side. What are your thoughts about it, Fallon? Because again, when you spoke about the experience of Restaurant Week, not just DC but other places, so you bring a different perspective.
Yeah, so I know Chicago enacted, I think, a minimum wage, as well as like California, and in other markets, it has kind of hurt some of the smaller businesses. I think, like you said, they were able to adjust quickly, and kind of understand how to make the model work for them. But think I think the troubling issue is there's a lot going on for culinary businesses right now, right? We're kind of hitting them from like 20 different angles and expecting them to be able to adjust their business model for all these things, right? For inflation, even staffing being an issue. Coming after COVID, a lot of people didn't go back into brick and mortar. They were doing the door dashes and kind of the gig economy. So even the staffing has always been a concern for most culinary businesses. Like, we just don't even have the staff to even enact all these changes, right? And there was a unique article that came out in the LA Times where a business said, I can't afford to close, I can't afford to be closed, and I can't afford to open. It was like, either way, I'm getting hit financially, and it's just not sustainable. So I think my concern is, I think we do have to adjust businesses to time. I think we have to be mindful that we're doing this in a way that the businesses can adjust for all these fluctuations, and not just kind of piling on all these expectations on, a small business. Like, that's really my only concern. Like, what is the local government doing to ensure that this new law could be enacted and the businesses have resources and workforce development programs to take on certain costs? Like, how can we all come together to make sure that everybody is winning? I would just kind of do that. There are some great resources out there. The National Restaurant Association has like an apprenticeship program. I know some culinary schools, their workers need, their students need hours. So there's some ways I feel like businesses could kind of reach out to resources. But I think, is the city making sure that they're empowering these businesses to have this support system so they're not having to make all these changes on their own?
Let me ask you, Carly, because I've got to take a break in about a minute or so. But tell me about Buddy's DC. What do you serve? Drill down a little bit more about what I would see as a customer, and also, where is it?
Yeah, so Buddy's DC is located 3234 11th Street in Northwest in the Columbia Heights neighborhood. So we are on the corner of 11th and Lamont. We have a nice large size patio. We like to coin ourselves as more than a sports bar, because at the heart of us, we are an elevated sports bar, but we don't have your traditional bar foods, right? Like, our food is a mix of like a Creole Caribbean fusion of American bar food. So we'll have wings, but we have like Old Bay wings and jerk wings. We have coconut collard greens and curry cabbage and short rib burgers instead of your frozen patties. It's very lean meat. Might get you to come on down and try.
Oh,
The food is really good. Buddy is actually my future father-in-law's name. We named it after him. It's a great guy. So why not, pay homage while he's still here on earth. It's a place where you can come and you can catch a game. You can come with friends. You can come by yourself. It's such a friendly atmosphere. You'll meet people while you're there.
I like that. Look, on that point, I need to hear more about those coconut collard greens and save a brother a plate. Look, stay with us. The Daily Drum will continue on Sirius XM, channel 141. The original Quiet Storm with Raheem Devon is next on WHUR. Just save your plate and get a napkin. We'll be back in just a bit. Welcome back to the Daily Drum on Sirius XM channel 141. I'm Harold Fisher. We continue our conversation about Black Restaurant Week. It is in full swing in the DMV right now. So listen, it continues until July 27th. It started on July 13th. There are all kinds of specials. And listen, it doesn't just include the brick and mortar. It also includes, some of those food trucks. So you definitely want to get out there, whether you are a foodie or not. You want to make sure that you tickle your taste buds with some food during Black Restaurant Week. I want to go back to my guests, Carly Hampton and Grant Mason, co-owners of Buddy's DC. And earlier in this conversation, you were talking about you wish you had a better business model, but you're still here. So what would you say you did well and did not do well, and how are you still able to stay in business?
A lot of work between this young lady and I, wearing multiple hats. We figured out that in this space, especially considering the economy right now, it's really tough to be fully staffed when you don't know what a day may look like. We've gotten better and more consistent based around different events we have, but people are struggling right now, especially in this area. A lot of people have uncertainty. People have been laid off. Over the last several months, we've had more people than we've ever had just walk in a space with very little to no background. IT people, tech folks, government workers coming in asking if we're hiring because they're out of jobs. And so we understand that the economy is what it is right now, especially in this area. And so we have to be flexible. And so I have to be behind the bar some days, right? And that's what we've kind of adjusted. She wears all the social media hats and event planning. And so we've been able to survive by the two of us kind of putting aside our usual regular jobs. I've been in the real estate world. She's a doctor of physical therapy, and we've dedicated, because of so much of our savings is into this, we've kind of put ourselves in full-time role in managing this business in order to keep some of the staffing overhead down.
Mm-hmm. You talked about the business model issue. What do you think you could have done better when you started 3 years ago?
I think when we started 3 years ago, because like you said, we're not from this industry in this space. So it was kind of like a crash course, right? Like we had to learn all the ins and outs of the restaurant business. We're taking advice from folks who we thought, knew more than they actually did. So it was a lot of lessons in the beginning. But I think, initially trying to figure out what works, because we're nestled in a neighborhood, right? So we're not on, a busy corridor like a H Street or U Street or something like that. We are kind of nestled into a neighborhood where there's a small amount of businesses up and down the block. And I think we decided we need to essentially have something for everyone, right? So for us, we have vegan options for folks that are actually absolutely delicious. Again, we say we're more than a sports bar because we don't only just show sports. We have relationships with different sports leagues in DC. So like the other day, we had a bike crew. They end their ride at Buddy's and have brunch on the patio, or we have different watch parties for sports. But even outside of that, we've done mixology classes and we've done watch parties for reality TV shows. You know, there's so many different things that we've tried to throw out there that people seem to enjoy. So again, we're more than a sports bar. So going that route, you know, has helped us. And the fact that our food is really good.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would add to, I think she touched on first, we did not know, but understanding we wanted to be a neighborhood centric place. Our pricing was based on that old school. Nothing on our menu is over $20, right?
Okay.
The idea, but not understanding food costs being what they were. We really struggled that first year with portion sizes and things of that nature because you're just not making any money on items because, you know, wings have tripled in price. There was a time, they've come back down now, but there was a time where, you know, a box was 2-3x more than it was for a 6-month range. And I just can't charge someone $30 for 6 wings. It just doesn't fit our model. So that's the only thing that I would say is because we're not fine dining and we want to be consumer friendly in those ways, sometimes it makes it really tough to draw a profit out of certain types of food. You know, whereas when you're at a more fine dining, hey, they can charge you what they charge you. You understand that's part of the experience. But being in a neighborhood like we are, it just doesn't work. It just doesn't make sense feasibly to me to say, hey, I know I'm serving you a burger and fries, but I need $28 for it. It just, that doesn't feel good. It doesn't make sense to me, especially in
Grant, you make such a good point because for me, I am not just a foodie consumer, but I also cook, and anyone, whether you are living alone or trying to feed a family, and you make your own chicken wings, you know, like they say, you know, we got wings at home. Sometimes the convenience does not outweigh the cost of food. And I'd like your thoughts on that also, Fallon.
Yeah, so there's a lot of concerns there, especially in LA. There are a lot of restaurants that are closing. There was another article that came out, the $25 burger at your sports bar may not be enough to save it. So, you know, but he brought up a really good point. We have a nonprofit foundation called Feed the Soul, whereas Black Restaurant Week is all about the marketing aspect, the awareness. Our nonprofit is about the business development side, because the conversation is I can market your business all day, but if your operations and back of house still aren't together, your business is subject to close. Food costs is one of the biggest conversations that come up, right? How to develop your menu pricing. And so many businesses will mention how they're just either looking at what their competitors are pricing, not really understanding that all of this is built off the cost of food. Mm-hmm. The reality is a lot of people enter into the restaurant space not going to culinary school, hospitality school, never even worked in a restaurant. And so a lot of them are having to learn on the fly. And it's such a costly business to learn on the fly. And so the purpose of the nonprofit is to support them with that, right? It's like we pair them with consultants, we pair them with training, we do virtual conversations every month because there's so much that they're having to the decision making, they're having to learn on the fly, and we just don't want them to kind of have to do it alone. But yeah, I think people just have to be honest about what's going on in the space of the food space right now. I think it's this conversation how we don't give enough restaurant owners grace. We don't look at the hospitality space as humans. We've kind of dehumanized it a little bit. It's just like, I don't want to pay for this. I don't want to tip this. Why are you charging me 18% to tip? It's like, these are just good people out here trying to like bring home money to their family. They're not bankers. They're not walking away with like, 30% profit margins. Most food businesses are making probably not even a 6 to 7% profit margin, right? I think we just have to understand the realities of what it costs to run a restaurant and understand that the food costs are not always going to be something that is palatable, but it's not the restaurant owner trying to win off of you. They're just trying to cover their food costs. So I think it's a really good conversation to have.
Can you talk to me a little bit more, since you mentioned tipping, Fallon? One of the things that whether you hear it on the stand-up comedy stage or you hear it with your family or your friends, there is this stereotype about Black folks not tipping. Okay, talk to me about that, because look, I'm a Black person.
Yeah.
Obviously, I do like all kinds of dining. I have a very eclectic palate.
Yeah.
Okay. I like soul food, but I don't eat a lot of it because traditionally it is not very, very healthy. And I'll talk to you about that too in a little bit, Carly. I want to get your but when when you go to fine dining and you're dropping a minimum of $150 or $170, yes, I'm going to do 20%.
Mm-hmm.
But for others of us, my cousins, your cousins, some of us aren't, they're not always. What are your thoughts about it?
So first of all, I was a waiter. So I say that you can't judge a book by its cover, honestly, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think as a waiter, you start to learn who the good tippers are. Back in the day when they used to allow people to smoke in the restaurants, they were good tippers because they're just going to sit there and smoke and drink for a good 2 hours, and they were going to leave you a good tip. I mean, then you have your businessmen. I would say for millennials, I think it's starting to be a generational thing. I think millennials are used to going out to eat. A lot of them have worked in the service industry, so I think they're okay with tipping. I just think the real conversation is you can't judge a book by its cover. I think the big issue is you're seeing the tip thing on everything now. Whereas before you just saw it in your full service restaurant, now you're seeing it at a coffee shop. Now you're seeing it if you're dropping off your dry cleaning. It's like everything is like,
yes.
And it's just, I feel like that is where it's starting to be like, okay, tipping culture is a little too much. But I think, even if you're ordering some food to go, tipping the to-go waiter, because understanding that to-go waiter, that's their only tip share of the night, right? You just have to process. Many people don't know how a restaurant is run. So I think that they villainize things that really aren't that big of an issue. It's just like these people are providing a service. If you don't want to pay for their service, eat at home, right? But don't go out, expect the world of service, and then get mad when you have to pay for it. So I just think that's a bigger issue. But I wouldn't stereotype and say all Black people don't tip. I don't.
Okay, because I know they do, but there is that stereotype, and I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole. And can't cancel me for a day if you want. If I'm spending my gas to drive to pick up the order that I made, and I got to stand there waiting at the cash register, and take my own,
yeah, I support that. I support that though, because when you have people that call in and order their food to go, I don't think if you haven't sat in a space and been served and have someone cleaning up after you, that you should necessarily be subjected to an 18% service charge, right? Now, if you want to give something extra, that's cool. But I totally agree. So we have it set up on a POS system that, hey, you hit takeout, it takes off that service charge, because that don't make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let me slide by buddies.
Come on through.
Yeah, come on through. So, Carly, you were talking earlier about some of the things that Buddies offers, but I want to ask you a more expansive question. Even though you all have only been in the business for 3 years, but you're a homegirl. You're from this region. There is obviously a reason why you have vegan dishes. Why you serve coconut collard greens. I'm not going to be able to get that out of my head.
Really good.
It sounds like it. But how would you say Black restaurant tastes have evolved recently, particularly when we're talking about younger people, younger professionals who, as we see on social media, are willing to go out and spend more for fine or eclectic dining.
Yeah, I feel like, now the range of options are a lot better. Like growing up in the area, you go into the corners, the carry out, you're gonna get you some wings and some fries and mumbo sauce, salt, pepper, ketchup. But now there are more options, right? Like you can go somewhere and get like different ramen dishes. You can get quality soul food. You can go and get some West African food.
Yeah.
There is, I think the melting pot of DC is showing a little bit more, and so people have more options to kind of expand their palates.
How do you keep up with the evolving tastes? Where do you get your recipe ideas from?
So actually, when we first opened, we met our Chef Mike, who is fantastic. He has a lengthy history of working in the industry for a while. He also has roots from Barbados, so he has a bit of a Caribbean background. Initially, we wanted to have a taste of different flavors, right? We didn't want to just be your traditional bar, right? And have traditional bar food. Some places you go and you're paying money for frozen chicken tenders that they just dropped in the fryer, and you could have done that at home, So ours is different because everything is freshly handmade. The batter, it's batter made to order. Every single thing. Like we have confetti rice on our menu, and even the peppers and onions and everything is chopped up into the rice. So there's nothing that we've had that is just like frozen or has to be reheated or anything of that nature. And I also find that with the way of the world now and social media, and also myself being in healthcare, people also want healthier options, right? You don't want everything that's just drowned in grease. And when you think of, certain bars or locations, you think, okay, I know they're just going to have chicken tenders and fries or something of that nature. And I think we didn't want to fit that kind of mold, so.
But that has to, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I was just thinking with the variety, not just of tastes, but with those health considerations where some people don't eat pork, and so you have to have something, you have to have an offer that doesn't have pork in it. People want gluten free, and you want vegan. That has got to really be a steep hill to climb with your business model.
Not necessarily. I mean, it can be, but so we have a seafood gumbo on our menu, right? And it does have pork and andouille sausage. But because everything is made freshly and prepared in a manner that those ingredients can be removed from that dish before they make it. There's no cross-contamination or any of that. And so we have that as an option. We have some gluten-free options. I like to say I'm a fake pescatarian because I like seafood a lot. So I mainly eat that. I don't really eat a lot of red meat and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make sure there's something for everyone.
So Fallon, when you're listening to what Carly is saying, what are you hearing from those offers?
No, I think it's really reflective of the Black food space. I think we assume everything is fried, soul food, and that's just not the case. Even in DC, there's a restaurant there, I think it's called Fish Scale, and they do the fish burgers, right? Just because it's quick service doesn't mean it has to be unhealthy for you. And I think you see that a lot, even with the rise of like veganism and other things. I've only met one restaurant where she actually had items on her menu for diabetics. And you think about how prevalent diabetes is in our community, the fact that the chef took time to meet with nutritionists and develop dishes that, was friendly to that community. So it goes back to the businesses in our community care about their community. And so it's reflective in how they're serving their food, because food is love, right? It's like, that's how you show the community that you care. So I just want to say that.
Fallon, let me also ask you this, because even though we talk a lot about the restaurants in DC, as you know, right next door to the East is Prince George's County. and which is a majority Black county. And for years, there has always been this outcry from some segments of the community in Prince George's County. Why can't we have finer dining restaurants there? But then you have some other segments of the community who vote with their feet, I'm not eating that.
Mhm.
And so how do Black communities, particularly those that may be more affluent, find or find a more competitive edge for the restaurateurs when you may have a louder group of people with more money, but you may not have enough of them?
Yeah, I would say the fine dining space in general is starting to consolidate a little bit. There are a lot of five-star chefs that are just like, I'd rather open up a burger shack
Yeah.
because the cost of running a fine dining restaurant is just, it's not profitable. And everything goes back to profitability. And so even when you have markets such as DC, there's a lot of, full service restaurants. I could go to other cities and there's just not that many. And when they do happen, they close, right? In
Yeah.
Dallas, you see that a lot. There's certain markets where the full service fine dining establishments just don't have the longevity as a chicken shack that's been open in the community for 80 years. Like that's just, it still comes down to people are doing this to make money, not to volunteer their services to the community. So I think you need to have diversification of all things, right? So I agree. We do need to see the fine dining Black owned establishments. You need to see food elevated at that level. There has to be a conversation that level of cooking and dining is on par with everything else that you're seeing in these other communities. We can produce that level of cooking. So I do think it's needed. The question just becomes, how are we as a community going to support the cost of that? What are we doing to make sure that other communities are supporting that? Because everything's not going to be funded by our community alone. It has to be something that crosses over and other, like Tatiana in New York, right? Everybody, they have like a 6-month wait list, not because of the Black communities, because everyone is championed around this restaurant in Lincoln Square. So I just think it's just the reality of, we do need to see our food elevated at that level, but I don't know, to your point, how we get there.
Yeah, Grant, you were nodding your head. Your thoughts about what Fallon was just sharing?
I'm in total agreement. I just think that the biggest thing, and we talk about it, the economic disparity, the funding that it takes to open a space like that, and the amount of time to recoup that money. You're talking about investments that may take, especially on the fine dining side, they may not be profitable for 5-10 years. It's that much money that goes into operating spaces like that. And we just don't have access to those resources all the time, nor do we have people that are willing to invest or take a chance with their money that they may not ever be able to see again or recoup. And we don't have that. Like you said, we're bootstrapping. Maybe even if we can get a loan or something of that nature, it's the money can be very costly. And our investors, a lot of times, are our families using their savings, and they just can't afford to take a $500,000 chance or $1 million chance. And that's only a small portion of what it would take to open up a fine dining establishment. Some of these places spend $4 or $5 million just to open.
Yeah,
You don't have that.
but to your point, and I asked, what were some of the difficult things for Buddies, but as I said, you're still here. And so to what do you attribute this 3-year stretch, and what is working? I guess that's my question for you.
I believe that first and foremost, she and I put so much of our love and time and effort into the space. The community almost has no choice but to recognize that and see we're here doing the work. We're doing community development. We're bringing in different vendors and different food groups, coming, giving them an opportunity to give away food on our patio. We have dog treats outside of our door every day. We're deeply rooted in a community, right? So even though You know, you have different sectors. Now that downtown is starting to come back because people are going back to work in these places. We had the benefit of being in a neighborhood where our consumers could walk to us. And though they may not bring enough revenue between those folks and then the people we're able to attract to the space, I think it's given us, an opportunity to slowly build. And we also don't have some of the same debt that some people may accrue because we used our own personal money and our family's money to do it, right? So when some places have to hit a number and they decide that they gotta close because we're just not profitable or we lost money over the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, we're a little bit more deeply vested in seeing this work. And so if it means that, like I said, if it means that we go in and work the shift ourselves, we've had the flexibility and the support from our families to be able to do that. And it's done. Right.
Yeah, that does sound wonderful. I only have a few minutes left, and I did want to hear from Fallon real quick. Your final thoughts on Restaurant Week in DC, Black Restaurant Week.
Yeah, I would say, so I always joke and tell people like the easiest part of my job is telling people to go eat. You know, I think the reality is the restaurants in this community are doing some interesting things. And this is a great time to venture out, try something you never tried before, and really support local businesses. The important thing about our model is we don't take any percentage of revenue that comes into these businesses, right? So every sale that they make during these 2 weeks, they're able to take that money, reinvest it back in their business. And year over year, they'll start to see, that sales spike during this time where they're eventually able to grow, bring in more staff, do other things to the restaurant. So we've literally seen businesses grow year over year within this model. So I would just say, if nothing else, if it's a call to support local businesses, this is a platform that allows you to do that and really pour directly into these businesses.
I think that's wonderful. Certainly, congratulations. And one final thing too, because I know Carly said in the very beginning of the conversation that Buddy's is named after a future father-in-law. So who's going to cater on the day that he no longer is future but father-in-law? Y'all going to work on that day?
Yes.
Yeah. We've delayed some of our plans based around what we've been dealing with, but hopefully very soon, maybe in 26, we'll be getting this party going.
Hey, listen. Listen, like I said, look, save a brother a plate, and look, congratulations on the business, the labor of love. And just hang in there. You two look like a wonderful team. You were about to say something real quick, Carly.
Oh, I just wanted to plug to come check us out during Black Restaurant Week. We have a selection of a few main course items, our full side menu, and a dessert, all for $20.25 to reflect the year. So yeah, just come check us out.
Well, thank you so much, and not just this week, but beyond. Got to keep Black folks in business. Thank you all so very, very much. I really appreciate your time. Good luck, and thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll see you at Buddy's.
There you go. That is the Daily Drum for this Tuesday, July 22nd. I'm Harold Fisher. Good night.